Colleagues, good afternoon once again, and thanks for joining us here at the Peduase Lodge, where, as I'm sure you are aware, His Excellency the President and the executive branch have just completed a 3-day cabinet retreat. This very quick press briefing is to update you on just a couple of matters that come out of this cabinet retreat and how it will flow into this week, and also to afford our colleagues at the Ghana Health Service an opportunity to quickly give us an update on the vaccination program as it's ongoing, the kind of numbers we are getting out of it, how many people have been vaccinated, are there any adverse effects that are being reported, how is it being handled, and how is the entire COVID picture looking like. So while I welcome Dr. Patrick Kumar-Boaje, Director General Ghana Health Service, Dr. Franklin Esidu-Bequin, Director of Public Health, and Dr. Chan, who is in charge of the vaccination program, I will take the first two briefs and the questions associated with them, and then I'll make way for our colleagues to also give us an update. But the President has asked me to start off by, on his behalf, wishing the Ghanaian woman a happy International Women's Day. The hard work, the industry, and the sacrifice that the Ghanaian woman makes as part of efforts to improve our communities and our nation ought to be celebrated. And he reiterates his administration's commitment towards supporting the Ghanaian woman through the various initiatives as were rolled out in the first term and as will be enhanced in this second term. So we say a big echo to the Ghanaian woman today. Now, President Akufo-Addo and the executive branch commence full work this week after completing a 3-day cabinet retreat to sign off on the key priorities of his second-term administration. As you would recall, the President swore in members of the central government on Friday night, about 28 ministers of state, and immediately afterwards, he commenced this 3-day cabinet retreat, I think on Saturday morning, right after the Independence Day celebration. The retreat gave the President's representatives at the various ministries, many of whom now became substantive ministers, and then those who were actually designated as ministers who also became ministers. It gave them the opportunity to report on the developments across the ministries, departments, and agencies between between January, when they assumed office as President's representatives and in some cases ministers designated, between then and now, the major developments that had gone on and the state of the various sectors. This also gave the President the opportunity to issue some new policy directions, especially for ministries in which new ministers are taking over. It also afforded the President an opportunity to outline his policy priorities for the second term as we prepare for the State of the Nation's address, which is slated for tomorrow at 1 p.m., and then the 2021 budget, which is slated for Friday. Now, as ministers commence work on Tuesday, the immediate focus of the second-term agenda includes, 1, winning the fight against the COVID-19 situation in Ghana, and we'll get an update where we are later this afternoon. 2, implementing a robust economic recovery program, because as I'm sure you are aware, COVID has dealt a very big blow to our economy in the year 2020. So the second part of the agenda is to implement a robust economic recovery program. And 3, aggressively implementing the second part of the government's transformational agenda as what's advertised around the 2020 election time. So you recall around the election time, or as part of the manifesto and campaign period, the administration advertised what we call the second part of the transformation agenda. These 3 things form the key priorities that you would notice attention being given as a result of these cabinet discussions and then the budget discussions. Now, also key among the issues discussed is the budget for 2021 and the broader post-COVID economic recovery agenda. The President has been very clear to his ministers to focus on building a strong collaboration among themselves so that you can get higher synergy from the work that people will be doing ordinarily as individuals, and then to approach their work with a very high sense of urgency so that we can deal with the issues that bedevil the various sectors of our economy. So that's just the first quick update on it. The second specifically has to do with the budget 2021 and the State of the Nation's Address 2021. And in these two major activities that are slated for this week, you'll notice that the President is prioritizing the post-COVID recovery program as one of his major focal points ahead of the State of the Nation Address and the budget address. As you will recall, Ghana was on a smooth rise between 2017 and 2020, improving in various areas: GDP growth, macroeconomic stability, and specific development programs, until we were hit by COVID just around this time last year. The effect of the pandemic has been, among other things, a sharp reversal in the macroeconomic and fiscal gains that we were making up until that point. Now, this week, as I mentioned earlier, government has two major events that are expected to kick off the 2021 program. The first, State of the Nation Address, slated for 1 p.m. tomorrow to be delivered by the President. And then the 2021 Economic Policy and Budget Statement scheduled for Friday. And that will be delivered by the Leader of Government Business and the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, the Honorable Osei Mensah Bonsu. Now, a key thread that you'll find in both is a strong focus on the post-COVID recovery program aimed at enabling the Ghanaian economy to return to its previous successes. This post-COVID recovery program is a key pillar on which the Akufo-Addo administration's second-term agenda is hinged. It is priority because without it, there's little foundation on which we can build the transformation agenda that we all desire. As I mentioned earlier, the shocks that COVID has dealt to the Ghanaian economy have been so severe that attention needs to be paid to a quick recovery of the macroeconomic situation as well as the fiscal situation. So you will notice that a lot of the work coming through this week will be, among other things, on this very strong post-COVID recovery program. Cabinet has approved this program aimed at a quick recovery of the economy, and it will find full expression in the State of the Nation Address and the 2021 budget. So you can look forward to that on Tuesday and on Friday. And the President expects full adherence to this program to enable the administration rebuild and complete its transformation agenda. Colleagues, I want to quickly sum these up in three and take questions related to these, and then I'll invite our colleagues from the Ghana Health Service to deal with the other part of our brief. Answer if you are saying, when say, Yemo Ghana a man in baso, and they are reasing in a yida bakwesi was ne ye kai ejumasoa ema eye omejuma din omutri mu popa o mahofama omde boama ye yefie ye mantem ye mani na no yetumi apagem no mampani say ye mo Ghana man nyina abaso ene ye celebrate International Women's Day na osan so bo ma no ho ba say kwan pa wo fi ase a wo fa so say Ghana ma yi die abribia ebegina ne na so no obekoso na watwa saa ekwan no so na bio so no abria wo fi ne second term ase eniama hodo obeye ma Ghana ma so akoso enya o mo baby page na no obekoso ahwe na waye na sene na ye ka no ene na omampani ne cabinet ewie nansa nhyiamu a na ono mo ye wo Peduase Lodge hase ya wo ebeka ya fiara na nwumre ena omampani ema the apotoka sem ye friend central government ministers beye eduonu wotwe no omo musae ya omo be fi omadwuma se beye banada nopa na so meme ndana nopa na ofiase ene omo ye nansa nhyiamu no they are not esi na nimpa ne se adwuma afie we ye ba beye no eno na opese ono omo tena se na yitumi san ase ne ehu sa afie we adwuma ye ba beye ni na adwuma no ebegina na po beye miensa eso baako ene COVID-19 yi kwan ya betumi afa so adi nkunim e wo COVID-19 okwan ye kono emu etoso mienu ne se COVID-19 no ama oman no niema bibra tosin yesi kasem yadwuma sem yempuntuo atosin kakra enti ekwan a or no in a cabinet, faso, na one more to me assign a page of my aquacusi baby and one and also no or no in common. As an idea, toss me and a boy who share December 2020, no, ye require about to him. Ye be per se, ye be this no choir, ye be to me a fast, a few we are this year, and my per se, you know, ye be to me. Na me chere mu kakra no ebeka ya na esi kasem no fiti 2017 ba 2020 na kɔ nanim pa ohwe mpuntuo ye kakra mpo ne ye hwɛ ye kaso the abroni friend the deficit ne ade nyina na ya ba anim ya record ye we na amane ma ate akɔ akyiri nti wo bon sɛ na wɔtwe we ya da anim yi ɔkyena number ko awia no mampani bɛyɛ state of the nation address parliament betina bɛyɛ number ko no mampani na kasa kasa bia bɛyɛ no mienu hɔ baabi no ɔyɛ state of the nation address wobɛhu sɛ saa deɛ wei ɛbɛwɔ gyina yɛkɛseɛ wɔ mu ansa na efiada yɛwɔ budget a wɔsɛ present yɛ ɔmampani ayi the leader of government business ɔno aso na ɔyɛ the majority leader ɔsɛ HMN Sabonsu member of parliament for Swami so ɔno na ɔmfa ɔmampani budget no ɛnkɔ mmarahyɛbadwam ɛno nso wobɛhu sɛ saa deɛ wei di akotene ɛwɔ mu ɛne nneɛma ahodoɔ aka na ɔmampani hwɛ anim sɛ the ministers ne aban ne nyinaa a wɔkyekyere no wɔn de saa nneɛma wɔbɛyɛ adwuma na yɛtumi de covid no so nkonim yɛtumi apagya esi kase mu abɛsi kwan pa a na yɛgyina so no na afi mpuntu aka no yɛtumi de atae akyire nti nkɔmɔ kakra a ɛwɔ hɔ fa adwuma yɛayɛ wɔ ho yi ne tɔfa boni we will take your questions on these and then we will now go for an update on the vaccination exercise as it's ongoing. You can use the microphones in front of you. If you just signal me, I'll call you out. I have one here. Is there a second?
Good afternoon, Honorable Minister. Please, I would love to speak the local dialect. Median the Akonaba and Abuadu, may you to me communications. Now, Pacho, Mepese Mebusa, Biafa, State of Nation addresser, Yaman Penny, Roberto or my name, any budget, a presentation, the Honorable Minister, or Sechi Mesebusu, also Edibeto or my name. The Pacho and she share anything. If he said, you made ye no, I am not penny for a sebi, or Mukabi a woman in Ano, a person Munya Quenya convert to me, Ako di Hua dance here. As on your share, emulate you, when I say, Emremu, Yare could you woo Abeto your soul. Na a besi of quite said, what do one and debate me a shiano. The Busa say, a debate share and a penny for, a dear Gua Quemu, say, Obia the bait me, Aquaco Tiebi. And I say, when you Cobia,
thank you. We'll respond to that. There was, I think, Kojo Ajima had his hand up. Kojo? Yes, let's take yours.
Good afternoon. My name is Kojo Ajima. So, Honorable, the post-COVID economic recovery agenda, what are the focal points of the economy that government would want to tackle? And then number two, in terms of budget for this program, are you aware of how much as a country we are going to be spending?
Thank you. And then there was a third hand here.
Yes, Honorable, my name is Ataminsa from Ghana News Agency. As you rightly said in your presentation, that COVID-19 recovery program hinged on strengthening the country's macroeconomic situation and fiscal regime. And before we can achieve this, it all depends on the finances of the nation. Recently, the traditional media and the social media was awash with reports of International Court of Arbitration awarding a cost of $134 million against the government of Ghana over cancellation of GCPG power purchase agreement. There was also accumulated 30 million interest the government of Ghana is supposed to pay. How do government take this issue or this development when it is about to take off? Thank you.
Thank you. So perhaps I'll start with that third question. The new Attorney General who started work has been asked to get a full update of some of these reports and share same with central government first to determine the validity of some of these matters and then government's next line of action. But even before then, you are right in understanding that the country's financial position or revenue position or borrowing position is in a difficult place because we've had to stretch ourselves very much to protect lives and livelihoods as a result of the COVID-19 response program. So while dealing with these specific matters of these reports of judgment debts and advising government on same and the next steps, the bottom line really is that our persons in charge of our finances will have to walk a fine line in mobilizing resources. And so resource mobilization becomes one of the major conversations we'll have to have. Mobilizing resources to enable us deal with the specific COVID challenge we have, and then even in terms of investing in the sectors of the economy that we have to invest in to stimulate a quick return to higher economic activity. There was a second question, I think, from Kujajiman. What are the focal points of this post-COVID economic recovery conversation, and about how much will it cost? I'll leave the how much to the President and the Minister responsible for parliamentary affairs when they deliver the actual speeches. But I think you can already begin to understand that if macro stability has been shaken because of the need to stretch our resources to respond to COVID, and if the fiscal anchor, which was the deficit that we were trying to bring down to 5%, you recall from 2017, government spoke a lot about the importance of having a strong fiscal anchor, bringing us down to about 5%, even past the Fiscal Responsibility Act, but had to suspend it. And if we are all now watching, and it's becoming clear from the Bank of Ghana numbers that are coming in, that our debt to GDP ratio, our deficit situation is gotten worse because of the COVID program, then you can bet that these two will become some of the key parts of the post-COVID economic recovery program. And as I've been mentioning, there's also the need to invest in flagship programs as well as sectors of the economy that will bring about a quick recovery in terms of growth and jobs. How much it costs, what are the details? The Minister for Parliamentary Affairs and the Leader of Government Business will outline that, I think, on Friday when he delivers the budget in full. Then there was the first question about the State of the Nation Address and budget. That was in Chi. And Okrese, you be an Ebenya Kwenya Ako Parliament. Sanse say MP Scrampo, you be an to me etnase. Sanse a titin tem kakra. Enti Parliament, in Shishaye, Ebeke Seni, Ombe to me, managing numbers, no, any guests and Kombe Havu. Na Nipanon Konko Broso, but Obe be here some Bewo Honsono, Ebenya baby, Obewo. Na to me, a Jumana Koso for Fefes. He says to TV ne Abe Fontaine Tainti. When you can with them who crampoa. So even your case beko tent can see any munau when you can with them who are Mijidi say, I dare bit me a near to baby. I was it here. We'll take another round of questions on this. There's one here. Are there any other? Two. So let me take these two, and if there are none, we'll move on. Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Honorable Minister. My name is Anapo Kul from Daily Searchlight. Recently, there's been a reportage in the media that Ghana's Sorry. Hello? Do you hear me? Honorable Minister, good afternoon. My name is Anapo Kul from Daily Searchlight. Recently, there's a reportage in the media circles and elsewhere that Ghana's total debt has hit 74% threshold. Is it true? And they are saying that because of that, already we are in a HIPIC zone. I don't know how true it is, and that it is going to, as it were, tie the hands of government for further borrowing. And talking of COVID and the economic situations, what magic wand is the government going to brandish, as it were, to tackle this intractable problem? Because all the economic fronts, especially except I think Agric, all other sectors are seeing some downturn. What magic wand are we going to brandish or show to solve this very difficult economic situation? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Me pacho ya frame Daniel Eduda kon Peace FM. Me pacho e bese me busa say post COVID-19 recovery program no. Ghana for phantom to some mama boss say yeah, the tariffs be about na say taxes be bombitia near the recovery na say then na ban Thank you.
May I say, Mamin Fiase Oho, say post COVID recovery program, no. Yambo Abosu mu say, Ebia, in your bit to be kakra and Sunday to me, I know na. Mamin fa first question, no crampo, no Fiase Yan Uchi, Munami Faudi income, maybe I made the English version. I know Cresses say 2020, Senia Yema. Ejuma ye ni nipa piepie ni ade brase no ye economy no sectors ni bebre ekọ ahokyerem nti ejuma ho so ombeye de obi oye ejuma wo ni sika obenya na nka ejuma ko no kura nya sika watua ma ban na ban so nya sika ni na akọ fom na o sa ban ko bobesia dodo odi be hyem na watumi de bia ma yensuo bia ma nyam kanea ye to PPs ye to eduro panie ne nkeka ho ne ade o mo yare ye mo ma yare hwe ne ade enti ama yesi kasem no sebe eho akere ne kakra eno na me nua ba ko bisa se ye say ye debt to GDP ratio atra be 70 something percent no kra akọ nanim actual figure no de se na me kan no ye kan budget no ifiada mpanimfo the latest figures by ifiada no pa no e ba beto abontin nti onye me na meko but eno mpo nkyere se hipic the NHS we a highly indebted poor country yenye poor country inti nyade a hipic asembebem but eno krese yesi kasem no eho atre ne kakra enti eho behia se ye be mobilize ska ye be peska na se sika no ye di bi afiase atete eka ya bo no so se sika no ye di bi afiase awurawura sectors of the economy akọ ahokyerem na ono matumi epegya omu ebiso wakora nye sika keke non-fiscal measures ye be kan otwi mu a akwankyere aban de bema a nye sikasem but bema saa edwumakuo no omho ahare wom no ma ye edwuma akọ anim enti se na mekan specifics ne de mpanimfo de ba betu edwa be fiada ba osi nyina ifia se ye adwen ye se ba bia ye du no eho behia se ye be pempeso na ya hwehwe resources na yetumi because yentumi mobesia saa mfen koyanim nti de beye a yebenye ska akra e de akoyanim yebe nkwan be fa so aye no. Just to quickly state that in English, it is true that our debt to GDP ratio as a result of the COVID response program has gone beyond our desirable numbers because as you are aware, major parts of the economy were projecting about 6% growth. We had to come down to about 0.9% because of the interventions that slowed down the economy. When the economy slows down and the revenues are not coming, government revenues are also not where you may want them to be. Maybe GRA may be their targets, but the various other parts of government revenue may not be where you want them to be. At the same time, you're having to spend a lot more money on the COVID response program. So the deficit position is not where you want it to be as well. It doesn't mean you are HIPIC, because HIPIC is for poor countries. We are not a poor country. So yes, we have challenges, but those challenges are not of a HIPIC nature. And you can't continuously just borrow your way out of your problems. So it will be important to look at the resource mobilization conversation and see how we can mobilize some resources or be more efficient in some of the current resource handles that we have so that we can get back on the economic track and also invest in the sectors of the economy, like you were asking, who generate jobs and incomes very quickly and get us back on track. The specific details will be outlined by the majority leader when he speaks on Friday on behalf of the president. Just to mention, the budget is the president's budget. It's not the finance minister's budget. If you check the forward, it's the president's budget delivered by usually the finance minister. And as I'm sure you are aware, the minister designate for finance because of medical reasons was not able to undergo his vetting and his swearing in. And so the president has asked the leader of government business and the majority leader to deliver his budget on his behalf in Parliament on Friday. So I'll take a final batch of questions and then we'll go to COVID. One, are there any other takers? Could you give you the final word then?
Honorable, this is a point-blank question. In our calls to internally generate revenue and all that, are Ghanaians going to pay more taxes, or are we going to widen their tax net?
Are there any other takers? Or Kojo has the final word? Chief, are you asking a question? Well, Kojo, thank you. My understanding is that it's a mix of measures that are currently on the table, and the details will be outlined on Friday. But I think the important thing that we need to start having a conversation about is that if you look at the current limits that we have, it is important to look at the best ways of mobilizing some more revenue to tackle the challenges that we have. But the president is also mindful not to burden the population that has already had its own difficulties because of the COVID response program. And I'm sure the final measures that you'll hear announced on Friday will be a fine line between raising more revenue but not burdening the population.
Well, as part of the options, are taxes part? You said a lot of options. Do we have a new tax regime going to see Ghanaians pay more? Is it part of the options?
Yeah, as I've mentioned, it's a mix of measures, but the details will be outlined later. So, colleagues, I'm going to say thank you, and then I want to invite Dr. Patrick Kumambwaje. We've been on a vaccination program since Tuesday. Tomorrow will be 1 week. How many people have we vaccinated? What are the sorts of reports we are getting on the so-called adverse programs? Adverse effects. You recall before the program, there were all of these stories about some people will lose one eye and some will lose one leg. What has exactly happened? Also, if you can tell us, the people that we intended to vaccinate, are they the people who are vaccinating, or other people are the ones who are taking up the vaccine? So we're in your hands, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Colleagues and friends from the Ghana Health Service, friends of the media, I want to use this opportunity to also wish our women all the best, with today being the International Women's Day. As the Minister mentioned, I will go through a bit of the overview of the current situation broadly on COVID, how the situation in our schools, at the airports, and most importantly, our status of the vaccination. So I will start with a brief give full details of the vaccination, and then get back to giving you details of our current status as far as the COVID is concerned. As a general overview, there's been a gradual improvement in the general situation of COVID-19 in Ghana. The active cases have declined from 8,000 to less than 5,000 in the last 4 weeks, and it continues to decline. Our daily reported cases have declined from 800 cases a day to 400 cases a day, and sometimes below, in the past 4 weeks. Our daily admissions, which is very important as a marker of how severe the situation is, has dropped from the average of about 270 people on admission daily, not those who are admitted, but that is, when you look at the best states, we have average about 270 people in Accra alone to about 150 currently, which is also a marked improvement. And most importantly, as at yesterday, 8 p.m., more than 200,000 persons have had their first dose of COVID-19 vaccination. So, please let's go to slide 20 so that I'll go back straight onto the vaccination. If you can move to slide 20. Good. Ladies and gentlemen, we started our vaccination program on the 2nd of March using the AstraZeneca vaccine. As of 7th March, 8 p.m. last night, a total of over 252 persons have been vaccinated. This is the one that has been electronically entered, and I'll give you some updates on that. Greater Accra alone has vaccinated about 128,088, but they have about 58,000 people they have vaccinated yet to be entered. Because you are reporting from the electronic platform, that's what it is. So both regions, Ashanti, will have about a third of the numbers to be entered. Friday, 5th March, saw the highest number of persons vaccinated in the day. That's about 46,718. And the proportion of persons vaccinated by sex is 50-50. So the numbers are just at par, 50% women and 50% men. So if you go more into details, for Ashanti, has vaccinated 69,325, 37,000 plus are females and 31,000 males. So in Ashanti region, the highest proportion is with the women, females. For Central region, we have vaccinated, because they are doing only 2 districts there, 4,639 have been vaccinated, 2,036 are females, and 2,603 are males. In Greater Accra, 128,000 vaccines have been vaccinated, with 61,000 being females and 66,000 being males. So like I said, about a third of this number are still being entered because of the I would say the enthusiasm and the with which Ghanaians wanted to get vaccinated, and we needed to slow down, so not everything was entered. We used the paper data, some electronic, and as they synchronize the data, we provide you with additional data. So one can confidently say that we are doing almost 300,000 people have been entered by the time we'll sync all the data and enter all the unentered data. So if you look at the days, first day was about 14,000 were vaccinated on Tuesday. They moved to 32,000, 42,000 people. On Friday, we had 46,000 plus, as was said earlier. And then Saturday, we had 39,000. And even on Sunday, we had 26,000 that had been vaccinated and entered. If you look at the numbers by district, I think it's a very, very crowded slide, and so, but broadly, it talks to you about the number vaccinated by region, by district. That's all the 43 districts we are currently doing, and you can see that every district is actively vaccinating. And in some parts of Ashanti region, the vaccines were dropped by drone from the Mampong site to be dropped for them to be able to quickly have a rapid assessment. Now, if you look at the number vaccinated, again by district, you can see it appearing there in absolute numbers. The first one was more about male, female, but this is in the absolute numbers, and you can see that Kumasi has got vaccinated about 19,802, whilst Accra Metro has vaccinated 17,019. But remember, we are doing about 20-something districts in Greater Accra compared to Ashanti region. If you look at the next slide, it tells you about the number vaccinated against the projected number to be vaccinated. And on the average, we are doing about 50% coverage so far. And we are hoping that by the end of the week, we would have probably covered all the numbers that are there. The next pie chart shows the proportion of all those vaccinated. Whilst Greater Accra accounts for 64%, Greater Ashanti accounts for 34%, with Central accounting for 2%. Now, so who has been vaccinated? We had a segmentation criteria. We were focusing on health workers, adults over 60 and beyond, those who have comorbidity, hypertension, diabetes, those who are sick and so they are more vulnerable. We had the security people, we had a few essential services that were being done. But you can see that the largest number vaccinated so far are the over 60s, which are currently stands about 51,000 plus, followed by health workers of 47,000. And then we have the persons with known an underlying condition being the third with about 31,000. So by and large, you can see that the core criteria has been followed, and they are the top three who have been vaccinated. We also have the essential service providers whose work is very essential that have been exempted. We've had the media. I think the media has had a fair share, a higher share of what was allocated to them. But that is because of the categorization. It could be a media person who has the comorbidity. And so there's a possibility that they may have been misaligned and put under media. But you've had about 2,000 media across the country have been done. Those who are on special assignment outside the country have also been done. About 2,000 of them have been vaccinated. Judicial, executive have all been vaccinated across the country. So, in short, the next slide just shows that the 50-50, I'm sure when we enter the data, I believe that it will probably be about the same. So how have been the main source of information? We also, as part of our learning, we find out from people who come to vaccinate, where did you get the information from? So, and the largest number has come from television, followed by radio, and then health workers were the third, and then we have others. Some social media accounts for about 12,000 and 97, and so for that I'm a bit happy because that's where we have all the misinformation coming from. But we have television and radio leading the chart. So what is the outlook for our vaccination? We are hoping and we believe that this is the beginning of the end of the pandemic once the vaccination is in. And it's happened, showed in other parts of the world where they've started the vaccination, where they have seen a rapid decline in their cases. There's a downward trend in Ghana. KIA continues to show more. The vaccination campaign will continue to further reduce the cases. Okay. So let's go back to our core status now as far as COVID is concerned. If you go to slide 5, we have so far recorded about 86,737 cases. We tested about 930,000 people across the country with about 29,973 per million population tests done, with a cumulative positivity of 9.3. We use cumulative positivity because that's a broad average, but at any particular time, depending on the severity, we may have a higher positivity than we have, especially between January and February. We have so far discharged about 81,000 out of them. We have recorded, unfortunately, 656 deaths with a case fatality rate of 0.76%. That is still high, but looking at the global average of 2%, that still means that I would say management have been good, or we've been also, Ghanaians have been spared a lot of the havoc that other countries have had. Currently, our total active cases is about 4,752 cases. Greater Accra still remains the epicenter, accounting for a significant number of it. Currently, all 16 regions and 252 districts have ever reported a case, which means that in all this, there are still about 8 districts that have not seen a case since March last year when the pandemic started. As of the 6th of March, the total on admission is about 175, 77. We have critical cases of 25, severe 66, and 86 of them are moderate cases. And this is depicted in the next chart that shows a gradual decline, but slow but steady decline in the number of admissions, the number who are critically ill, and of course the number who are severely affected. The next chart, the usual chart that tells us all the districts that have had cases against the active cases. And you can see currently every region has an active case. The epic curve remains, the second curve after you have seen the last one, has continued to show a decline. And so we hope that it will continue. And if you look at the next slide, which gives us the moving average, you can see that also pointing downwards, and you hope that you continue doing that. But that is so because of the things you are doing. This is not to make people complacent. We are down because you are wearing a mask. A relatively higher number are wearing masks. And we hope that if you continue with the introduction of vaccine, you should see a much steeper reduction than we are having. The airport, so you can see that the test conducted in Ghana continues to go up. And so as the numbers go up, we do more tests. And that's how it's just showing there. And then you can also see that the active cases probably hit a peak that we have never reached before, but it continues to show a decline, and we hope that it will continue that way. At the Kotoka International Airport, we have so far recorded 1,260 cases. Majority of them are non-Ghanaians. Males account for 62% against 37% female. And we have done about 185,000 tests with a cumulative positivity of 0.68%. So it's slightly lower than the national average. You can see that over the years, we peaked. The highest number of positivity at the airport was in January, and we continue to decline in February and then March to looking at where we are. We hope that the number will also remain low. Now let's talk about our schools. Since school reopened in the middle of January, a total of 281 schools have recorded cases of COVID-19 among students and pupils. We have had a cumulative case of 1,709 cases. And the active cases as at 7th of March is 381, which means that a significant number has recovered, and we hope that this also shows that looking at the total number of over 6,000 schools and the number that has been affected, that the schools have done well, and we hope that people will continue maintaining the protocols to keep the number down. Last week we had a few hikes in Volta region, but there were a couple of schools, there were a few schools, and so there was more of an outbreak, and that's not as risky as when you have sporadic spread across many schools. The Northeast is the only region that has not recorded any case in their schools. 4 regions, Ahafo, Bono, Northeast, and Upper West, currently have no cases among the students, which means that those who had positive cases have all recovered. And so if you look at the next chart, that shows the active cases. You notice that Central region has 85, Eastern 44, Greater Accra has 47. Volta, like I said last week, we had some research there that recorded about 134 cases, Western 32, Western North 6, bringing the total to 381. Okay, so that's it for the update. In terms of the outlook, I'll just go over the outlook again, that we have seen a downward trend. We have seen KIA continues to go down. Need to maintain the main safety protocols even when you are vaccinated. It's very, very important that you do that, because you develop immunity after 2 weeks, and subsequently, until you get your second dose, you still have, it's not 100%, so we want everybody to continue after applying the social protocols, social distancing, hand washing, among others. We are going to work on pursuing additional vaccines. We are hoping that between now and probably in May, we are expecting about 2 more million AstraZeneca vaccines from the COVAX facility. There are bilateral arrangements that are bringing in additional. Currently, we have received another 100,000 AstraZeneca vaccines, and some of them will go to cover all health workers in the country to ensure that they're also safe, and then they're able to render services. We are acquiring additional cold chain equipment for the ultra-negative vaccines that will come in. And then we want to continue to sustain the public education to adhere severe safety protocols and vaccine uptake. Finally, we are currently going to adapt a locally developed app, which will allow us to be able to do scheduling of, you can do a pre-registration before you go and vaccinate. You can do appointment system for you to go and vaccinate, to know where you're going to vaccinate. It will generate your COVID passport for you, so we know all those who are waiting, and the database will be in Ghana. That will allow us, whatever the world decides on, we have enough database locally to be able to respond appropriately and learn from how it is, including checking those who have had positive, whether they've had vaccination or not. So, Honorable Minister, thank you very much. This is the update for
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Awaje. I just want to reiterate a number of things you've mentioned, and then we'll quickly take the questions. So currently, after about a week, or at the end of the first week, let me say, at the end of the first week, we have vaccinated about 300,000 people here in Ghana. Out of the initial target of about 570,000, we have vaccinated about 300,000 people, and that's quite significant. In fact, if you look at it that way, then it's a little over 50%. If you look at the 570,000 as a target, it's a little over 50%. If you look at the full 600,000, then that's about half of it. We're doing this in 43 districts, and the distribution mechanism has included the use of drones to deliver vaccines to some parts of the country. And I think that's very significant. You recall when we started making investment in the drone infrastructure, there was a lot of criticism about why it didn't make sense, it wasn't a good idea. But today, right before our very eyes, we are seeing the benefit of some of this infrastructure that was put in place. We're expecting about 2 million extra doses between now and the end of May. We're expecting about 2 million extra doses that are coming in. Also, a decision has been made, and I think this is something that colleagues will be pleased if you highlight. A decision has been made to make special allocation for all health workers across the country. All health workers across the country. To make special allocation out of the about 100,000 extra we have received, to make special allocation for all health workers across the country. So despite the fact that the vaccination is currently going on in 43 districts, we're about to roll out a sub-program to vaccinate all health workers across the country out of the about 100,000 extra that we have received. And additionally, we're investing in purchasing cold chain equipment that will allow us to get some of the other vaccines, the ones that require minus 20 degrees, minus 70 degrees storage. And we are also rolling out a technology platform that allows for appointments and scheduling for persons who qualify and need to take their vaccines. And this is locally developed technology platform. These are highlights I just wanted to reiterate. So colleagues, good time to take questions, and then we will wrap up. 1, 2, is there a third beyond these first two? 3, 4. So let's take 1, 2, 3, 4 for the first round, and then we'll continue. Let's start with you.
Yeah, Doc, thank you very much. My name is Clifford Kufu from Ghanaian Times. Per the presentation, is it right for me to assume that we have received a total of about 750 doses? That's the 600 initially.
750,000.
750. That is plus the 50,000 from the Indian government. And we know for the AstraZeneca, each person is supposed to receive a double jab. So, and with the rate at which we are going, the figures look quite impressive. Are we sure there are about 300,000 who have taken their first jab, there will be enough vaccines for them to go for the second jab, and then also ensure a continuous rollout of the program in terms of the vaccines available?
Okay, thank you. There was a second question here. Is that GNA? Yes, please go ahead.
My name is Arthur Minson from Ghana News Agency. Yes, we have heard that there's compensation package for people who experience adverse effects after taking the dose. How do people assess that compensation? Because we have heard people have experienced paralyzed arms after taking the dose, some experience dizziness, malaria, flu, and other things. How do people who have experienced such adverse effects assess compensation or support?
Yes. TV3? Yes, go ahead.
All
That
right.
was the same question. Okay, there's one behind you. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
thank you very much. I'm Musa Lansar with GH1 TV. One thing I'm worried about is medical waste. How are we going to handle the waste that is coming from the vaccination, medical waste? How are we going to handle that?
How are we handling the medical waste associated with the vaccination? All right, so just to reiterate these questions, is it correct that we've received about 700,000? And do we have enough that will be in stock for those who are due for the second shot by the time their second shot is due? There's a question about adverse effects and compensation. Maybe you have to reiterate, have we recorded adverse effects? If we have, how many? And is it true that every adverse effect, you get compensation for it? You may want to speak to that. And then how are we handling the medical waste? These are the first three questions. Colleagues, I'll come back for another round.
I'll start and my colleagues will add. In terms of the numbers, we have scheduled. You know, the AstraZeneca, the next dose is 8 to 12 weeks. And based on our schedules, both bilateral and the COVAX facility coming, that gives us enough time to make reserves for those who are due for that. So all that have been taken care of in the rollout plan. So that one is there. There are other vaccines where the first dose and the second dose are different. And so when you have them, you need to keep the second dose separate because they are the first and the second dose are not the same. So that one is actually quite ready. In terms of adverse effects, I'll add, but Dr. Chanu will add. We so far, as of 2 days ago, recorded about 129 adverse effects. And adverse effects, we count all. When I took mine, the following day, I had a few weaknesses, still an adverse effect. But we had people who had the largest number of complaints was headaches. Some had some mild fever. Some had weaknesses. Of course, the site of the injection was also part. Dr. Chanu will add more to that. And then we also have the medical waste that you can also waste.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think the issue of adverse events and compensation, we need to clarify it more. I believe people read on the Gavi website about COVAX and compensation for adverse events. It's not every adverse event that would be compensated if you look at the document that was posted by Gavi. What the document is saying is that it is helping governments of those 92 countries that signed onto the COVAX facility, where when there's a very rare adverse event, you know, before a vaccine is passed, it goes through several stages. Key amongst them are what we call the key phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 studies in human beings. Normally, those are very limited numbers of people who receive the vaccine and after which it is passed for use. Now, when it is used in the general population, you are giving it to millions of people. And it is not just for COVID, for all vaccines. You give them to millions of people in the general population after they have been passed for use. So what happens is that normally there may be some very rare adverse event which may not be discovered in the clinical trial, so to speak. So if you have, say, 100,000 people in the third phase or phase 3, and you expect you have a very rare adverse event which will happen in 1 in a million. Because your sample size, that's the number of people you used for the clinical trials, is even far, far, far less than the numbers within which you would expect the very rare adverse event. You may, on occasion, find this in the general population. And it's normally related to allergies. And, you know, people may have some hidden allergy that nobody would really discover during the clinical trial. They are the ones that COVAX was talking about. So it's not just the dizziness and the fever or the hot body or the headache that people complain about. Those are very expected. It's the unexpected ones once you have given the vaccine to a large number of people. You may have it, say, 1 in 3 million or 1 in 6 million. Those are the ones that they were talking about. The medical waste, yes. Traditionally, we incinerate all our wastes. Fortunately, this time, is it Just Pro or Just Bro? The Zoom Lion is helping us with waste management, and we are very happy with that. But we have structures in place. For almost all facilities, we have incinerators where we send our waste for incineration. So we've taken care of that as well. Over.
Thank you. So just a quick bit of math. 129 over 300,000 is about 0.043%. In terms of, I mean, it's not even up to 0.1%. And they are minor, headache and fever and a few things. So just to put it in perspective. Colleagues, let's take a final round. One